We're going to start the meeting for the Bureau of Cannabis Control public hearing on the proposed regulations. We're going to start off the hearing with opening remarks from Chief Ajax.
Good morning. Good morning.
Press the button. Perfect. Thank you.
How about that? Good morning. I can't hear you guys. Good morning. Yes. Well, welcome to our final regulation meeting, and we're ending it here in Sacramento. I'm Lori Ajax, Chief of the Bureau of Cannabis Control, and this is Tamara Colson is our Assistant Chief Counsel with the Bureau, and so we're both going to be up here today listening to your public comment. I do have to have a statement for the record, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. This hearing today is to consider the Bureau's proposal to adopt regulations regarding all Bureau cannabis licensees, which include distributors, testing laboratories, retailers, microbusinesses, event organizers, and temporary cannabis events. The Bureau proposes to add chapters 1 through 8 of Division 42 of Title 16 to the California Code of Regulations. These proposed regulations were noticed on July 13th of 2018, and for the record, the date is August 27th, 2018, and the time is 10:01, so we're officially started. I just want to say a few things before we start taking public comment. You know, I think it's important to know that today we have our emergency regulations in place, and today we are commenting on the proposed regulations that we just issued last month on July 13th. As most of you know, the Act divides 3 licensing authorities that regulate cannabis here in California. So we have the California Department of Food and Ag, who regulates the cultivators. The California Department of Public Health regulates the manufacturer, and the Bureau then has the rest of the licensees. I think it's important for everybody to know these proposed regulations are a lot of research, but also a lot of informational hearings, a lot of talking to all of you, getting comments over the month, the previous 6 months, and really looking at what's been happening currently with our emergency regulation. I think it's important to know that the emergency regulations has helped us really look at how things are working in the supply chain, and I think you're seeing that in the proposed regulations. So a lot of you are, a lot of information from all of you has helped us shape these proposed regulations. I think it's important to tell you these are not final. That's why you're here today, to comment to us, because we still will most likely be making changes to these proposed regulations. So your input today is valuable, and we really appreciate you coming out here Monday morning at 10. We really do appreciate it. These will, the final, once we get through this process, these will replace our emergency regulations. So these will be final regulations, and we plan to have those in place prior to our emergency regulations expiring. And today's hearing is just to accept comments. I know a lot of you may have questions, but we are not answering questions here. Unlike other public hearings that we may have done in the past, we're just going to be listening to you. So it's really important that we have a court reporter here. She's going to take down everything you say, and so we're just going to be listening, taking notes. And any comments you have on manufacturers and cultivators, it's really important that you get those comments to them, not us, because those are their regulations. So there's still time to email any of the other 2 licensing authorities to get your comments in. Once again, we really appreciate you being here, and we're going to get started. And our facilitator, Lindsay Nita, is just going to go over a few housekeeping items. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let you know, the restrooms are right through there for men and women. We also have a couple of single restrooms in the foyer. I'd like to go through the process really quickly, and then we'll go over submitting oral comments. At this time, the hearing will be open to take oral testimony and any documentary evidence by any person interested in these regulations for the record, which is now being transcribed by our court reporter. All oral testimony and documentary evidence will be considered by the Bureau before the Bureau formally adopts the proposed regulations. or recommends changes based on the information received through the hearings and written comment process. Written and oral comments will be considered equally. Written comments can be turned in at the table in the foyer. For oral comments, our court reporter will be taking down everything said in the hearing, and the transcript will become part of the rulemaking file. A complete copy of the rulemaking file will be available for review at the Bureau's office in Sacramento. Please note that any information you provide orally or in writing will become part of a public record. If after the comment period, the Bureau determines that changes should be made to the proposed regulations, the Bureau provides notice to those who submitted comments on the proposed regulations. This provides an opportunity for comment on the proposed changes. To receive this notice, you may provide your contact information for mail or email delivery as part of your oral or written comment. Additionally, the notice will be provided to those people who are subscribed to the Bureau's listserv. We also have public comment cards on the table in the foyer. You can write down your contact information on that, and that will also sign you up to receive the notice for the proposed changes if there are any. To move forward with the submitting oral comment, we will have speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3. You get 1 minute and 30 seconds each. There'll be a buzzer when your time is up. To speak into the microphone, please press and hold. Speak clearly for the court reporter, as you mentioned that she's transcribing everything said, so it's really important for her to get it accurate, so when the Bureau reviews the comments, they understand what is being requested. So to start with public comment, if you'd like to take an open seat, and then we'll move forward, and people line up behind the table to, and as soon as the seat becomes open, please fill the seat. So with that, we'll start with public comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
The microphones are always on. If it's
Oh,
if
these
it's
microphones
the
are
red,
always on. Okay. I'm sorry. You do not have to press to hold these microphones. The ones in your table are always on, so just speak clearly into the microphone.
Good morning, Derek Dolphin.
I'm sorry. One other comment is this is being webcasted. Our webcaster is right here, and he'll be just on the speakers for the duration of the hearing. And with that, we'll start with speaker number 1.
Thank you. Good morning, Derek Dolphin on behalf of the League of California Cities. First and foremost, I'd like to say that the League is neither a pro nor anti-cannabis organization. Our primary concern is protecting the right for cities to reasonably regulate cannabis. Thank you. To reasonably regulate cannabis at the local level. My colleague Charles Harvey, at the prior 2 hearings, has stated the League's overall position for these regulations. Today, I would like to elaborate on 4 additional points. As of now, over 80 cities have formally submitted comments opposing Section 5416D on page 62 of the regulations that would drastically preempt local control and regulatory authority by authorizing cannabis delivery anywhere in the state regardless of conflicting local regulations or bans. Second, the state of Colorado, which officially legalized cannabis in 2012, does not allow for cannabis deliveries of any kind. According to the Municipal League of Colorado, this is due to according to the Municipal League of Colorado, this is due to serious security concerns over how the transactions would take place and public safety concerns for the transportation of product and cash. We share many of these concerns here in California. 3, throughout the discussion on cannabis deliveries, there have been arguments criticizing reasonable local regulation of cannabis. However, the drafters and supporters of Prop 64 envisioned robust local principles as the best way to implement legalized cannabis. Given that my time is out, I will have to come back for another round. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, David Jones on behalf of the town.
Please wait till I acknowledge the speaker card that you're in front of. And then also, you can turn in any written comments to the table, and they will be submitted for the public record as well. Speaker number 2.
Madam Chair, David Jones on behalf of the town of Truckee and the city of San Marcos. We echo the comments of the League. Truckee is specifically concerned about the notification shortening of the time frame from 60 days to 10 concerned that we're going to not be able to turn that around, and understand exactly if the state comes in and does grant the license, what process a locality would have eventually to overturn that in any appeal process. So for those reasons, we echo the comments of the league and are opposed to the regulations as they currently stand. Thank you. We will be submitting our comments to the public record. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 3.
Hello, good morning. My name is Mandy Tingler. I'm the Director of Business Development for Papa and Barkley. I am also the newly elected board member to the National Cannabis NCIA. And just wanted to share that we are 100% in support of all access for licensed delivery services. Obviously, if they have to go through the excruciating licensure process, that they probably have some very specific measures in place to be able to provide safe access to cannabis-based products for patients who are unable to get to dispensaries on their own and or just financially are not able to attain something local within their own jurisdiction. I also wanted to speak just briefly to the testing requirements, the phase 2 testing requirements. Our company is primarily a topicals-based company. We are very much so an organic product. We also have been a vegan product, but due to the new testing regulations, there is some discrepancies in what we are having some issues with regards to testing laboratories. There is a anti-parasitic that's used in beekeeping. We have beeswax in our topical. And there is a common anti-parasitic called Coumaphos, C-O-U-M-A-P-H-O-S-E, that we are suddenly now turning up as non-passing on our tests because the topicals are being held to the same regulations that consumables are. It should be also said that all Burt's Bees products and 85% of the beeswax containing products in the general marketplace do contain Coumaphos. We have personally gone out and bought these products and sent them to lab for research. And we're talking about things that actually are ingested.
And I'm sorry, your time is up. We're having an issue with our timer, so
Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry for the issue. 1 second. Okay. Apologies. Speaker number 1.
Hi, my name is James Yim. I represent Meadow. We make POS software for retailers and delivery operators. POS software for cannabis retailers. So my comments are on track and trace. While the BCC is not responsible for the state's track and trace system, all licenses must depend on the system, including retailers and distributors. There are understandably concerns as we watch other states that have implemented metric struggle with crashes, outages, and almost constant errors and costly corrections. If the state track and trace fails, the requirements of the state's regulations can't be met. Our proposal is, given the importance of an effective, stable, and reliable system, we propose adopting a staggered approach to track and trace implementation across the supply chain. Retailers and distributors should only be required to use track and trace after it has been shown to work successfully at the level of cultivation. Until that happens, they can continue to record all required transaction and inventory information internally as the emergency regulations currently require. This would greatly reduce the pain of all implementation along the supply chain and greatly improve the likelihood of a successful rollout of a track and trace system statewide. Staggering implementation will help prevent potential outages, gross errors, and interruption of daily operation for the entire supply chain.
Thank you. Speaker number 2.
Good morning. My name is Max Esdale. I'm also here with Meadow. I think you've probably heard enough from me already, so I just wanted to come to offer my support for anonymous ordering for adult users, which is currently allowed under the emergency regulations, but under the proposed regulations, all transactions would require that a name be kept for 7 years. If this is in order to enforce the daily purchase limits, I would like to suggest that you could only require a name be kept for 24 hours. And if it's for a recall, I'm not entirely sure that a first name alone would be sufficient to actually find if a man named Joe bought a pre-roll 6 months ago in Sacramento, maybe a little bit difficult to find him with just that alone. So I'd like to suggest that, maybe we could offer a little more anonymity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker number 3.
Good morning. I'm Dale Schaefer. Do I have to push a button? I sit on the Compassionate Coalition. This is a conspiracy, right? There we go. I'm on the Compassionate Coalition. I'm counsel for Weed for Warriors Project, and I represent a non-storefront delivery here in Sacramento. Seniors seeking cannabis. Okay. I'm here to support 5416. You're messing up my mojo, Lori.
Let's, I apologize. Let's restart the speaker time, please.
Okay. Good morning. Dale Schaefer, Lori. I'm on the Compassionate Coalition, represent Weed for Warriors, and a delivery service here called Seniors Seeking Cannabis. I'm here to support 5416D. As I've stated before, I believe that the Mount Cursa gives you plenty of authority to be involved in this area. Immunity on public highways is stated in the law. The 26200 local authority is for land use and safety within the jurisdiction, and no other industry is regulated and stopped from making deliveries into a local jurisdiction. It matters not what happens in Colorado because we have a robust delivery industry in the state already, and wrapping your arms around that to regulate it is what this is all about. Truckee and all other cities, state call up weed maps and get a delivery this afternoon. So trying to regulate that is what this is about, and I strongly support 5416D so that we can open up and regulate delivery, which is already going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get the other microphone.
Thank you.
Go ahead and press it out, please. Thank you.
Apologies. If you sit in front of speaker 3 microphone, are we still push to talk or is it ready to go?
Go ahead.
It's ready to go. Okay, so we're ready to go. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Speaker number 1.
Good morning. My name is Katie Maple, and I'm here on behalf of Weed Drop and the California Cannabis Courier Association in support of Regulation 5416D. To date, there have been 1,367 letters of support for this regulation submitted to the Bureau. I want to thank the Bureau for including this important regulation.
Can you slow down just a little bit?
Say something to everybody. I'm certified to write 225 words a minute. So when you're reading something at 300 words a minute, I'm not going to get it on the record, and you're going to want it on the record if you want the board to hear it.
I appreciate that, and I apologize. It's about 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is a lot to get in that short period of time. So.
I think you're able to get back.
Sure. Thank you. Can I begin again? Okay. I want to thank the Bureau for including this important regulation, which provides protections for employees, patients, and consumers by clarifying that drivers of licensed cannabis delivery businesses can travel on public roads and deliver into any jurisdiction within the state of California. Simply put, we do not believe that local governments can legally prohibit home delivery. In no other circumstance does a local government have the authority to ban a legal consumer product from being delivered to the privacy of someone's own home by a licensed business. So it's unclear why cannabis should be treated any differently. This regulation merely clarifies what's already in the law. Local governments can use land use authority to restrict which businesses can open up shop, but not whether or not home deliveries from licensed companies can occur. This regulation ensures safe access for patients and consumers and the viability of the regulated market as a whole. With more than 3/4 of cities and counties not licensing retail or banning entirely, there is a disruption of the supply chain in which producers have no avenues to get product to market. Meanwhile, due to lack of local licensing, many Californians live great distances from the closest retail location, meaning those who physically can't move, don't own a vehicle, can't afford a caretaker, or have the time and resources to spend hours on public transit are the ones left out. I respectfully request that you keep this intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Good morning, Ed Howard on behalf of United Food and Commercial Workers Union. We've submitted lengthy comments. I would like please to amplify those comments with 3 points related to 5416D, the proposed regulation, and 2 brief points related to transparency. Related to proposed regulation 5416D, we believe that in addition to indisputably conflicting with what the voters were told about local control, and in addition to conflicting with Health and Safety Code 11362.45, Business and Professions Code 26054B, Business and Professions Code 26055E, and 26200A of the Business and Professions Code, we'd like to amplify our comments by noting that the proposed regulation cannot be supported by 2609E of the Business and Professions Code, which states specifically, quote, local law as applied under 6200, acting in compliance with this division, and a local law as applied under 26200. In that statute in subdivision A, the electorate is specifically instructing regulators such as yourselves that nothing in this division, and of course 26090E is in the division, shall be interpreted to supersede or limit authority of a local jurisdiction to adopt or enforce local ordinances to regulate businesses licensed under this division. My time has expired. I'll get back in line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 3.
Good morning again, Derek Dolphy on behalf of the League of California Cities. To continue my comments from earlier, my 4th and final point is section 5416D does go beyond the statutory provisions of Prop 64 and MCRSA and exceeds the BCC's regulatory authority. California Business and Professions Code, section 26013, limits the regulatory authority of the BCC to enacting rules and regulations that are consistent with the purposes and intent of Proposition 64. By allowing deliveries in every jurisdiction in California, the BCC is fundamentally changing Proposition 64, not simply clarifying existing law. In closing, we can all agree that safety is a primary concern for everyone. If the BCC authorizes deliveries in all jurisdictions, this would be de facto deregulation of the cannabis deliveries for jurisdictions who do not already allow them. This could lead to serious public safety risks and potential abuses. Finally, some patience is required. These regulations have only been in effect for 8 months. Many cities are watching and evaluating the experience in neighboring communities to see how it works there first. In the coming months, you will see more cities allow cannabis in ways that best fit their community's needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker number 1.
Good morning. My name is Arthur Whitelene. I'm here on behalf of the Rural County Representatives of California, the California State Association of Counties, and the Urban Counties of California. We have submitted a fairly lengthy letter on section 5416D, the apparently ubiquitous delivery regulation that everyone wants to talk about. And we, as indicated, have some fairly serious legal concerns with the regulation. I'll leave you to read those in our letter and speak today on one of the practical points that I think really does bear consideration. Our organizations have been on the ground working on cannabis regulation since the very old days before the MCRSA was passed. And I think we understand and share the Bureau's underlying desire to jumpstart the cannabis industry. We do have concern that the proposal to essentially deregulate deliveries will actually have the opposite effect in the long run. As a previous speaker pointed out, I think it's easy for those of us who work on the ground in cannabis regulation to feel like we've been doing this forever. In fact, it's actually been a very, very short time, both at the state level and at the local level as well. Not a day goes by that we don't see another news article about a city or county considering updating its cannabis regulations and engaging in public hearings and stakeholder processes. These things take time. Making good decisions at the local level, just like the state level, takes time. Unfortunately, the proposed regulations would be perceived, and I believe are, something of a breach of trust between the state and local governments and the communities they represent. And I think I can safely say that that kind of breach of trust is not going to make the process at the local level go faster. It's going to make it go slower. Additionally, encouraging cannabis retailers, probably the most daring of them.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll have to come back. Thank you.
Speaker number 2.
Good morning. My name is Michael Wheeler. I'm Vice President of Policy with Locana. Locana is a branded distributor here in the state. And I have 3 comments that I'll offer one at a time and get back in line if I need to. The first has to do with section 5052.1, acceptance of shipments. This newly proposed BCC regulation appears to require that a licensee reject a shipment or a portion of a shipment. There is a discrepancy between what is manifested and physically present. Flocana ships over 250 retailers around the state, and it's in our best interest for orders, manifests, and physical shipments to all match perfectly, but this doesn't always happen. For example, an order of 100 cases, 60 of X and 40 of Y, could be shipped and all 100 are received, but instead of 60, you get 40 of X and 60 of Y. And the way that this section is written currently, the retailer would need to reject the entire shipment, despite the fact that they probably do not want to reject the entire shipment. So we would request clarification that a licensee may reject only a partial portion of a shipment or have the ability to correct the manifest with what was actually shipped. My time's up. I'll be getting back in line. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Sadler. I'm here representing the California Urban Partnership. As the Bureau has convened stakeholders across the state to inform its current development of regulations, the California legislature has moved swiftly toward the passage of SB 1294, the Bradford bill, which proposes to ensure that populations disproportionately impacted by the racialized war on drugs participate and benefit in California's burgeoning legal marijuana industry. The administration has signaled a willingness to support SB 1294's intent to provide critical financial and technical support to help impacted populations enter the cannabis market. However, the administration has held a firm position that other policies necessary for equity in state licensing should emerge from the regulatory process. A major Prop 64 deficiency is the absence of a state-level playing field for drug war victims to secure business licenses and capital now. At the same time, state license approvals and regulations are happening. We believe it is imperative for the regulatory process to level the playing field now with a basic starting formula for equity. The proposed regulations must be intentional about shaping a truly equitable cannabis industry now at the time that it matters most. Absent from the proposed text.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Speaker number 1.
Good afternoon. I thank you for your time. I thank you for 4160 creating access delivery. Hello, I'll try this again. My name is Troy Lawrence.
Stop standing.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Troy Lawrence. I'm here hopefully representing those that are forgotten, the disabled and the people that obviously couldn't get entry into this building like I did. Thank you for the team and the friends that helped me, and that is my point, is that entry isn't allowed for everybody, access isn't allowed for everybody. People like myself that are disabled, senior citizens, people that are depressed with mental issues, they don't come out of the house. And to get access to their medicine is difficult. I have access, I've made myself accessible, but everybody doesn't have access. 54160 allows access to medicine. Let's not forget in 1996 where this started from, medicine. This recreational bid and this recreational 64 is destroyed and pushed aside those that started this, those that need it, those that want it, to get off opiates. That's what I do. I try to get people off of opiates, tinctures and things like that. The THC, the psychoactive high, I'm not into, things of that nature. I'm into the medical benefits. And this 54160 allows the medical benefits to those that can't get access. It allows delivery. CVS, Walgreens, everybody else gets delivery. I don't understand why delivery to people that can't get access is not allowed. And I support 54160 and I thank you for it.
Thank you. Speaker number 2.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ariana Tibbetts on behalf of the Cannabis Distribution Association. Thank you for taking the time to hear our concerns. We have submitted a comment letter to this effect with a detailed narrative on each comment, so I'll be brief in summarizing each point. In regards to quality assurance and testing, we have 6 key points. In subsection 5307, we are in strong support of the clarification allowing for distributor-to-distributor transfers after testing, further supported by the passage of SB 311 through the legislature last week. In subsection 5726, we would like to see the regulations require testing labs to clearly display the reason for lab test failure on each certificate of analysis, or COA, and to clearly display whether the test is an official certified test versus a non-certified test. In subsection 5305, we would like to see allowances for composite testing, a practice by which multiple strains harvested at the same time can receive a single pesticide test. In subsection 5306, we would like to see allowances for an appeal process for the certified test results, whereby a producer can appeal the result and request a secondary test be conducted. In subsection 5724, we would like to see an increase to the allowable cannabinoid variance from 10 to 20%, especially for cannabis flower and non-infused pre-rolls.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Good morning. My name is Michael Ramirez, and I'm here on behalf of the Cannabis Distribution Association. We understand that these next 2 points on tax collection remittance may be better suited for the Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and we have submitted to them as well. But additionally, we would like these to be on record with the BCC. Without the authority to enforce penalties on producers or retailers for failure to pay harvest and excise tax, respectively, distributors are held liable for the tax obligations of others who they have no recourse for failure to pay. We feel that the licensed distributors should be required to report any uncollectible harvest tax and excise tax amounts due from licensed retailers within 30 days of the calendar quarter and the end of the quarter in which the tax obligations become due. And the department should notify these licensees of their past due obligations. The department should consider imposing penalties on these past due licensees. Additionally, we feel that licensed distributors should only be responsible for remitting the department's, to the department all harvest and excise tax amounts collected during the period. Harvest and excise taxes are due, but not collected by a distributor shall not be required to be remitted by the distributor until collection is complete.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Hi, my name is Amber. I'm here as a medical marijuana patient who was blessed with multiple spine conditions. I only use cannabis to treat my pain. Since the enactment of Prop 64, I have completely stopped supporting dispensaries. I quit my job as a dispensary manager, and I now get my medicine from the black market. Why? Because I can. There is no compassion whatsoever. The MMIC program is not a program designed to create patients, but in fact it's to deter them, because you all, the powers that be, see this as retail. Because many do not have insurance. Most doctors, despite all of the evidence and statistics about the harm of opioid use, still do not recommend the use of marijuana. Why would a primary care doctor prescribe cannabis when his money is made from Big Pharma? He will not. So you've taken away the right of medical marijuana patients to have access to quality, affordable meds, access to affordable derived from cannabis CBD, which is proven to cure and relieve severe health issues such as cancer, seizures, and neurological damage, and you still do not acknowledge the fundamental need to allow on-site consumption. Yet I can walk outside City Hall right now and see people smoking cigarettes, crack, meth, and drinking alcohol, but if I choose to spark up a joint for my nerve pain, I run the risk of getting arrested. Concert in the Park, which brings out attendees in the thousands, is an all-ages event with alcohol. Why are we teaching our kids that the only way to party, to relax, and to convene is with the use of alcohol? No one ever died from smoking cannabis.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Good morning, Ed Howard, USCW, continuing our comments on the legality of proposed regulation 5416D. Based on over 20 years of litigating administrative law cases, generally, but also specifically administrative law cases related to initiatives, it's regrettably true that the prospects of 5416D surviving a legal challenge are particularly poor. First, they're particularly poor because the courts in California turn somersaults to uphold the intent of initiatives, even when those intentions are unclear. And here they are quite clear regarding the intent to provide for some significant amount of local control. The second is under, and for that I would cite Cal Farm versus Duke Majan, 48 Cal 3rd 805 and its progeny. Similarly, the prospect for deference to the regulatory agencies here is particularly weak. This is not a regulation which requires an in-depth knowledge of cannabis to figure out whether it is lawful or not. Finally, on that our last point related to the proposed regulation 5416D and its illegality, in our comments we point out that the regulation would violate Government Code 11349.1A2 at page 6 of our comments, but in retrospect it also would violate Government Code 11349.1A4 as well. We do have some brief comments related to transparency, and I'll get back in line just one more time.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Thank you, Arthur Wylene, on behalf of the 3 county organizations. As I was mentioning earlier, cities and counties, or a good many of them, doing what Prop 64 and the MCRSA contemplated, which is going through their local process to determine what kind of regulatory scheme works best for them. We do have concern that encouraging business models to be developed that are essentially based on violating local ordinance are probably going to make those conversations more difficult. They are certainly not going to make them faster or better. That's without getting into the concerns, I think, that are very much clear and present by encouraging an emerging industry to build business models based on a legal theory that, as I think you've heard, is 50-50 at best. I think that's a real concern. I think I'll simply sum up by saying I would very much encourage the Bureau to think three-dimensionally about the consequences of this particular course of action in Section 54160. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Good morning. Michael Wheeler with Flocana one more time, providing my second of 3 comments. This has to do with Section 5309, Inventory Reconciliation. Currently, the requirement to reconcile a distributor's inventory every 14 days is a nearly impossible task, especially when combined with the level of error that is set to be created by the current public plans for implementation of the metric track and trace program. Multi-locational distributors such as Flocana already have every commercial interest in maintaining accurate virtual to physical inventories, such as to avoid the loss of revenue, to ensure inventory ordered is actually available, and to avoid diversion to the illicit market. It is already an industry best practice to reconcile inventory every month in coordination with a sales cycle and standard record keeping. To accelerate such reconciliation does not eliminate error, it only multiplies the work required to track inventory and adds cost and overhead to payroll. We would request that the BCC change the frequency of inventory reconciliation to every 30 days for distributors. And with the time remaining, I'll probably just get myself back in line for the 3rd comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Good day, my name is Kimberly Cargyle, Executive Director of the Therapeutic Alternative Retail Storefront Cannabis Dispensary here in the city of Sacramento. I want to start by supporting 5416 that allows deliveries to be made throughout the state of California, with approximately 2/3 of California not permitting retail storefronts. Many patients, legitimate patients throughout California, currently don't have access to cannabis. I understand that a compromise may have to be made on this issue, but please don't compromise legitimate patients' safe access. The line should be drawn there with someone who has a doctor's recommendation. I have 2 suggestions for changes to the regulations. One is 5052, acceptance of shipments. There's a number of reasons why a document that comes to us, a shipping manifest, may be inaccurate, and we may need to reject just part of the shipment. What we've been seeing throughout the last few months is if a product comes to us that's not in total compliance, we'll need to reject that product. If for some reason in the shipment process a package has been broken, a seal has been broken, we'll need to reject that product. Sometimes there's miscommunications between, for instance, one manager at our dispensary and the manager at the manufacturing or cultivation or distribution company, and we may have accidentally ordered the wrong product. I'll get back in line, thanks.
Speaker 3.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Rossi, CEO of BT Industries. I'm here today to speak in favor of Section 5416D. My company is probably veteran-owned and operated. About 20% of our customer base is comprised of veterans, many who are severely disabled and immobile. About another 20% of our customer base is comprised of wounded, disabled individuals. And to disallow the use of public roads, right-of-ways in order to deliver to our customers' private homes is not only a slap in the face to those who, due to their sacrifice, we are even here speaking today, but it's a slap in the face to those who have no access to get their medicine due to the regulations and the lack of retail operations in their areas. This is something that we definitely need to take into factor. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
My name is Noah Farb. I have 2 comments. One is the BCC be required to produce compliance test COAs by public request so that members of the public can see the compliance test for products they've purchased. Second comment is with respect to Section 5025, subsection E, requiring walls between distribution and manufacturing and cultivation premises. This is a blanket policy that is unnecessary. Chain link fencing should suffice, and building code is more than suited to cover when a wall is required to divide premises.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Hi, Ariana Tibbetts here again on behalf of the Cannabis Distribution Association. My final comment with quality assurance and testing is in subsection 5053, we would like for each party in the chain of custody to be notified in the event of a product recall. Moving on to packaging and labeling, we have 5 key points. In subsection 5413, we would like to express support for the option to use child-resistant exit packaging instead of individual child-resistant packaging. However, we feel this should be an either-or scenario. For those who have invested heavily in child-resistant packaging, it would be redundant to require a child-resistant exit package. Additionally, we do understand the argument for certain products, such as edibles, to be required to be replaced in resealable exit packaging. We would recommend that this requirement not apply to cannabis goods that are non-decarboxylated, such as flour and concentrates, where the cannabis goods cannot cause someone to become intoxicated from accidental ingestion. In subsection 5724, we have several recommendations related to labeling requirements. Most notably, when a COA fails due to a label claim discrepancy, the COA should clearly read cannabinoid claim failure, remediation method to be relabeled. Given the simple method for remediating, relabeling by the distributor, this should not require an approval from the regulatory agency. The distributor responsible for remediation should sign off on the COA, taking responsibility.
Thank you.
I'll get back in line.
Speaker 3.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Dudgeon. I'm the CEO of Newell's Botanicals, a brand partner with Total Leaf Incorporated, holding a Type 6 manufacturing license in Sacramento. I have submitted extensive comments for the California Department of Public Health in regards to manufacturing regulations, but this is for kind of everybody. I'm requesting that the date for the end of temporary licenses being issued be extended if this committee decides that an additional 45-day public comment period is necessary. And that is so that we can adjust to the new permanent regulations as they will be adopted and avoid some of the production delays and losses that we've experienced to date. The rapid and often whiplash-inducing changes in regulations have led to substantial delays in production, losses of financial and material needs, and revenue stagnation, especially in the manufacturing sector, which has led to what we're describing as a mass extinction event among manufactured cannabis brands. Now, I have no doubt that the lack of product on shelves and the death of consumer-beloved legacy brands is responsible for much of the failure to live up to the industry revenue and tax revenue projections. And I think that extending temporary licenses for additional period will help alleviate some of that moving forward.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Good morning, Josh Drayton, Director of Communications and Outreach for the California Cannabis Industry Association. One of the biggest issues that has come to surface for our members is dynamic delivery. So, while CCIA supports the concept of technology platforms and dynamic delivery, we also believe that public trust and safety must always be the #1 priority. The lack of regulatory oversight of technology platforms operating in the dynamic delivery cannabis space has become a major concern for the majority of our members. Since the rollout of the state licensing framework in January 2018, retail delivery operators have faced significant changes. Access to consumers has been undermined due to a strict interpretation of existing law by local governments that has precluded access to customers and banned jurisdictions. Such obstacles have been exacerbated by the use of dynamic delivery, which has been largely promoted by technology platforms. This model has encouraged unfair competition and created an unlevel playing field for licensed delivery operators. Larger companies with more resources will have a distinct advantage if the current language persists. While CCIA represents companies of all sizes, we are keenly aware of the challenges the dynamic delivery model has created for licensed operators and are concerned that the very companies that helped build a legal and regulated industry might have a very difficult time competing. Providing regulations to establish a level playing field for new as well as existing operators will promote commercial activities in an unbiased manner while safeguarding the public quality for cannabis production.
Speaker 2.
Michael Ramirez on behalf of Cannabis Distribution Association. Continuing, the next point related to taxes is in regards to transfers of products and distributors to micro businesses. We would like the department to clarify that when transferring or selling product to a micro business, the transferring distributor is responsible for collecting excise tax unless the transfer is designated on the manifest as being transferred to the distribution portion of a micro business, in which case the micro business assumes the liability to remit the excise tax and releases the transferring distributor of that liability. In regards to security, we have 4 points. Subsection 5315. We feel that transport-only distributors should be exempt from premises-based security requirements, given that the license type does not allow for storage on site. In subsection 5305, we support the revised holding period for security recordings from 180 to 90 days. In subsection 5417, with the changes to allowable products limits for delivery vehicles from 3,000 to 10,000, we encourage the Bureau to re-examine the security requirements for the non-storefront delivery vehicles. Assembling deliveries on order bags on the side of the road is not a secure location and presents significant safety concerns.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Good morning, Ed Howard, USCW, now addressing the question of transparency. 3 quick points to amplify from our written comments. First is, since we submitted our written comments, we have learned that at least one of your sister enforcement agencies depends upon public disclosure, especially through your website, to easily, quickly, and inexpensively access information about shared licensees. Otherwise, without such public disclosure, even your sister agencies will have to contact you expensively and cumbersomely, pester your staff to get information about shared licensees. The second is to commend to you the example of ABC's daily and weekly reports as an inexpensive and efficacious way of releasing at minimum the identity of those who applied. And then finally, to reiterate something that we've said in our comments, is these are public records. They are indisputably public records. And we implore the Bureau to not require us and other stakeholders to file repetitive and serial Public Records Act requests simply to obtain the identities of your applicants. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Kenny Sadler with California Urban Partnerships. Again, good morning. I wanted to reiterate that absent from the proposed text of regulations are any effort to promote equity to ensure that residents of communities that suffer high rates of incarceration and other social ill effects from unequal enforcement of cannabis possession laws are able to benefit from legalization. This will have the effect of positioning wealthy investors to monopolize market share before low-income community members who have historically been incarcerated for plying the same trade can feasibly develop their operations. Requirements for advanced licensing of premises, surety bonds, and fees are all obstacles. It appears to be required to declare even juvenile convictions for alcohol, dangerous drugs, or other controlled substances. The State Cannabis Advisory Committee adopted a number of recommendations on equity in licensing, including the creation of state-level equity licensing programs or program, fee waivers, installments and deferrals, research support, access to property and premises, data collection, and local program models. None of these recommendations appear to have been incorporated into the proposed regulations, and we'd like to see that.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Good morning, Michael Wheeler with Flocana. Third and final comment. Section 5034, the definition of a significant discrepancy in inventory. This existing BCC regulation defines a significant discrepancy in inventory as $5,000 or 2% of monthly sales, whichever is less. For the variety of companies that are out there, small and large, this is an arbitrary limit and has no flexibility. When one can't select the percentage base, if the company has grown in size, and $5,000 is no longer a reasonable limit for the discrepancy in inventory. For example, in Flocana, we have a 99.5% accurate inventory across our multiple retail or distribution hubs across the state, and this still is a significant discrepancy in inventory greater than the $5,000 limit. We would recommend that the BCC change this definition to the higher of either $5,000 or 2% of monthly sales. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Good day, Kimberly Cargo from A Therapeutic Alternative. My comment is for Section 5411, free cannabis goods, asking that you change the language to require a state ID card to just requiring a doctor's recommendation. Providing compassion-free cannabis goods to the patients that need it most is very important to many patients who require to use large amounts of cannabis every day. Adding an additional financial and physical burden of having them go down to the county health department and sign up for a state ID card is unnecessary. In my county where I signed up, only 12 people have signed up. At the end of June, when we had to sell out all prior inventory, we had an article in the Sacramento Bee that said we'd be giving away our products that were not able to sell after July 1st to anyone with a state card. One person came in. There are maybe 5 people in our collective of thousands and thousands of patients who have their state ID cards because of this financial and physical burden. The patients that need it most suffer when they're not able to get cannabis for free. The company is willing, our company is willing, and many companies are willing to take on that financial burden and provide this medicine to people. There are people with spinal cord injuries who use hundreds of milligrams 3 times a day. There are patients.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 1.
Hi, my name is Terry Apple. I own STC Alternative Healing Delivery Service, and I am here in support of allowing delivery to all jurisdictions. All patients have the right to access, and is it not safer to have one delivery driver out on the road rather than having 10 patients going into a dispensary? And that is if they are able to get to a dispensary, which many patients are not. Also, the way it's set up, there is no way of figuring out where the bans start and stop. If you look at just one zip code, it can go into the county and city. There are no clear lines. We don't have lines that we can see. So even if it were to stand, there is no way of figuring out which patients are okay to deliver to in any zip code, and which ones are not okay.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Good morning, my name is Aaron Riley, I'm president of Cannabis. We're a testing laboratory located in Los Angeles. We have several suggestions for the BCC in regards to the testing regulations. One, there currently is there is a tolerance for labeling errors, but there is no set tolerance for 0% label claims. So if somebody says their product has 0% THC and it has 0.3%, that would be a fail, and there's so we're suggesting that there is some sort of tolerance set aside for 0% claims. Also, there's in the final proposed regulations, the BCC sets standard or sample sizes to run through instruments. That needs to be clarified. For many of the assays, there's a 0.5 gram sample minimum, which would actually be destructive to run through analytical instruments. If that was a sample size that needs to be required, then diluted down and ran through an instrument, that would be acceptable, but to run those sizes through instruments would be destructive. And then finally, we recommend that the BCC sets an oil batch limit. We're currently seeing a lot of deviation in what manufacturers consider acceptable batch sizes, anywhere from 1 liter to 20. And we're seeing discrepancies in those products from pesticides, potency, and people are using that distillate to make many manufactured products.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Hi, Ariana Tibbetts again on behalf of the Cannabis Distribution Association. I'm going to pick back up with packaging and labeling. Currently, retailers are rejecting products that have already been remediated because they take one look at the failed COA and determine the product is not fit for sale. We want the COA to clearly read that an effective and simple remediation process is available and signed off by the distributor. In subsection 5303B, we would like to clarify that distributors may relabel manufactured products. Due to the significant label claim discrepancies, relabeling after has become essential and commonplace for distributors. Huge bottlenecks would arise without the ability to relabel manufactured products. Also in subsection 5303, we would like to clarify that distributors may package or assemble non-infused pre-rolls. After an unpacked harvest batch is tested and packaged into individual units such as eighths and grams, there is often leftover flour that is best utilized for pre-rolls. Without the ability for distributors to create non-infused pre-rolls, this product would need to go backwards in the supply chain, ultimately to be retested once in its final packaged form. We view the ability to package pre-rolls no differently than being able to package flour into gram or eighth jars. In 5303.1, we would like to express support for the weight variance for dried flour. However, we feel that 2.5% is not substantial for a weight variance of a 1 gram of 3.5 gram individual flour product. We feel the weight variance should be increased to 5 or 10% to account for moisture loss and the fact that producers intentionally overpack flour.
Thank you. Thank you. Speaker 1.
Hello, John Brower from Trinity County, and I want to describe what is really an emergency in Trinity County right now. We're a small rural county, just inland from Humboldt and Mendo, and our total population is 14,000. Our sheriff estimates we've got about 5,000 commercial cultivators in the county, and our county jumped out in front. We've got about 300 local permittees with state temporaries now, all cultivation. Yet we have zero distribution and no means of participating in this transition to a well-regulated white market right now. So I'm asking for some means of these legacy outdoor growers that have really built this California brand over decades to be able to have participate with a local county regs specific to distribution transport only and self-distribution for at least some limited time period to help get this supply chain moving. So in regards to section 5044, video surveillance, Trinity County has very little internet connectivity, and an extension or some possible means of operating for some limited period of time without this surveillance mandate would be very helpful. And then section 5047 that mandates alarm systems
reads B.
Apologies to him, is that
Thank you.
speaker number 2?
Hi, my name is Dr. Gary Ward. I'm with Medical Lab Analytics. We have an accredited lab in Oregon and also some licensed labs in California. I've been in the industry, testing industry for 40 years, and I've been in a number of labs, and including I ran the Superfund program for EPA. At the request of the governor of Oregon, I implemented the Oregon Environmental Lab Accreditation Program for cannabis testing. So I kind of sat where you guys were 2 years ago. It's a very, very difficult task, and this, by the way, didn't happen from cannabis. This was earlier. Anyways, our concern is that at PacLab Analytics, we have seen product that have passed the micro tests for E. coli, Salmonella, and Aspergillus, but it was covered with mold. And this is a concern for us. So we are recommending that you add the total yeast and mold count test to the test to get a better handle on total issues, and recommend a action limit of 10,000 CFUs, colony-forming units per gram. And this will help as a comprehensive safety net. In addition to catching Aspergillus, it'll also catch Mucor and Cryptococcus, which can cause vomiting and meningitis. Okay, 8 seconds left. So that's it. I just want to recommend the test to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we move to speaker 3, I just wanted to let everyone know we're about an hour in, so we have 1 hour left. If you have any oral comments and would like to do so, please get in line. Also, thank you for your patience for the technical difficulties. If you could refrain from moving or touching the microphones when you're up here, please try not to do that. It seems that without touching them, they're acting okay for now. And then lastly, if you want to receive notices of any proposed changes, please leave your contact information. We have the comment form to leave it there. Also, signing up for the listserv is a way that you'll receive a notice of the proposed changes if there are some. And then lastly, thank you for speaking clearly for our court reporter who is transcribing here today. With that, I'd like to go to speaker 3.
Michael Ramirez on behalf of the Cannabis Distribution Association. Again, continuing with security. In subsection 5311, we would like to point out 3 main concerns relative to the motor carrier permits, or MCP, specifically. 1, who is required to obtain one? 2, how to obtain one? And 3, security concerns related to certain MCP requirements. 5311 references motor carriers for hire as those required to obtain the MCP. We recommend clarifying that for hire refers to transportating of cannabis goods that are not owed or titled to the distributor conducting the transportation service. Second, operators have been confused about whether or not a US DOT number is required in addition to the California DMV number. However, it is our understanding that the US DOT number should not be required given those operators are strictly intrastate, and not operating outside the California borders. This information would be useful on the cannabisca.gov website. Lastly, a major concern from the industry is the vehicle code subsection 27900A, which requires motor carriers to display on both sides of each vehicle or on both sides of one of the vehicles.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Good afternoon. Rich Miller on behalf of American Alliance for Medical Alliance, Medical Cannabis. Our organization is primarily composed of seniors. I am too a patient, and I do live in a banned area where the chain control does fall on the locals. Being in a banned area that does not allow delivery as well, Auburn does not allow delivery, and I support 5416 and bring to you forth that if there is no footprint in that city, there should be no reason for a ban. The local control should fall on the locality that is permitting that delivery service and not base it on the final destination of where the product is being delivered to. Furthermore, I addressed that most of our patients are seniors and are shut-ins and are financially living on a fixed income. The card program does put some problems in place, and that Section 5411 should be removed, requiring the due diligence upon that delivery service or that dispensary doing their due diligence to make sure that patient is a compassionate patient, and they should have the right to give that compassionate medicine to that individual. It's important to remember that we form this for compassions of patients, and with so many communities throughout the state, 3/4 of the state not permitting.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Well, Chelsea Dudgeon with Rules Botanicals again. This comment is regards to recalls. Couldn't help but notice when reading the regulations for the California Department of Health that recalls are initiated by CDPH and require the product be pulled from shelves all the way back to the manufacturing location to be held in quarantine for 3 days before being destroyed. There's a disconnect between this and what is outlined in the site requirements for manufacturers and also in who normally handles quarantine and destruction procedures, which is distributors, not manufacturers. Manufacturers don't even have a quarantine room because that's not what we do. So we need to somehow fix this discrepancy across the agencies so that recalls can be performed as intended without requiring to be held in rooms that don't exist at manufacturers who are not equipped to handle or destroy the product. And that's it.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Hi, my name is Seth Smith. I'm with the Santa Cruz Veterans Alliance. We're a licensed retail operation in the county of Santa Cruz and a licensed cultivator, manufacturer, distributor at our production facility in the city of Watsonville. To our knowledge, we're the only licensed organization that's continued a compassionate care program since January 1st. Our Veteran Compassion Program has been going on since January 2011. We donate anywhere from 3 to 4 pounds of cannabis to anywhere from 100 to 150 veterans every month through our monthly compassion program meeting, where they receive a voucher that they can use at our dispensary to claim their free donation. Of the about 1,000 to 1,200 veterans that currently comprise our Veteran Compassion Program, only 2 have the state-issued medical cannabis card. All of them have a doctor's recommendation. They're not allowed to be a part of the program without a doctor's recommendation and proof of service. So we very much like to recommend that you do not require a state-issued medical card for participation in compassionate care programs for medical patients. We also would like to ask that you allow us to write off the cultivation costs, the cultivation tax that we've been paying on the cannabis that we donate since 2014, that we continue to pay out. We know that the other taxes already don't apply. CDTFA has cleared that up with us over the last several months, but we'd be happy with the clarification to be made more crystal clear anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Once again, John Broward from Trinity County, and I want to continue on that conversation about this emergency that we're in Trinity County, where the supply chain can't get moving until we can have some local distribution. And so we're asking for a little more time, perhaps stretching out temporary licenses or some provision to operate under local regs for pertaining to security and premises, but specifically the surveillance requirements and the alarm system requirements are problematic right now. We're working on it. We'll get there to the more robust requirements, but we need some time. Section 5047, item B, a licensee shall ensure a licensed alarm company operator or one or more of its registered alarm agents installs, maintains, monitors, and responds to the alarm system. Trinity County does not have an alarm company that exists in Trinity County or an alarm company that will come to Trinity County from either Humboldt, Mendo, Shasta, Tehama, or anywhere. So we need a little more time here or the ability to operate under local county security regulations.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Hi, my name is Shannon, and I'm representing a company called Medium Labs. We are processors for hemp-based products, including crude, distillate, isolate, as well as white label products. And we are located in Colorado. We have a number of clients here in California who are working on some unique and exciting products. We would like to submit comment on 16 California Code of Regulations, Section 5406, which proscribes licensed retailers may only sell cannabis goods, accessories related to licensees, branded merchandise, or promotional materials. Health and Safety Code 11018 excludes industrial hemp from the definition of cannabis, thus preventing California cannabis retailers from selling hemp-derived CBD products. Preventing companies from infusing isolate into food products and allowing retailers to sell those products puts a huge damper on our entire industry. Some of the best hemp-derived products are created and developed in California, and placing limits on production stifles the opportunity for research and development. This puts California companies at a disadvantage because California will fall behind other states in research. We also know that inhalation is not the exclusive method of CBD intake. It's important for patients and consumers to have the opportunity to obtain CBD in a variety of forms, including edibles and tinctures. CBD has many beneficial properties, and being able to provide that to people in a number of different forms is so important. ADM Labs. Thank you. Speaker 3.
Michael Ramirez, Cannabis Distribution Association. Continuing with 5311, a major concern from the industry is vehicle code subsection 27900 alpha, which requires motor carriers to display on both sides of the vehicle or on both sides of other vehicles, such as a trailer, the name and trademark of a person under whose authority the vehicle or combination of vehicles is being operated. This requirement poses a security risk to the cannabis businesses, specifically at the point of retail delivery, where targeted threats are commonplace and delivery drivers are often followed back to the vehicles or followed all the way back to the distribution facility. California Highway Patrol will ticket motor carriers without this name or trademark designation on the vehicle, with potential fines and/or revocation of a permit as a penalty for non-compliance. However, several licensed cannabis distributors are concerned to the place and name of the trademark on their vehicles, such as in West Sacramento. We are not allowed to, per our local ordinance, to have any identification on our vehicles that are related to the cannabis business. Continue with subsection 5052.1. A critical amendment should be made to allow retailers to reject partial shipments of cannabis goods, while administratively easier.
Thank you. Speaker 1. Good morning, Sabrina Fendrick with Berkeley Patients Group. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on the proposed regulations. We have identified a few sections that pose certain obstacles to the success of the cannabis industry. Under 5411, there is no mechanism for a retailer to sample and verify the quality of the product that will be sold, and the staff is unable to suggest or properly educate the customer on product options. Retailer sampling can be tracked and measured and will offset concerns surrounding diversion and other illicit activity. In addition, 5411B1 discriminates against those patients who are unable to secure ID cards. California law does not require an ID card to be considered a medical cannabis patient. It only requires a card to take advantage of certain tax relief. With regard to exit bags, 5413 is not consistent with the intent of Prop 64 in Division 10. While technically an exit bag can be included in such a definition, we do not believe the Bureau has the authority to regulate or establish standards for packaging compliance pursuant to 26130A. BPC vests the authority with the DPH, and they cannot impose packaging standards on retailers. The only packaging the BCC was granted over retailers is to place purchased products in an opaque bag. We support the proposed amendment to 5416 allowing drivers to deliver into any jurisdiction. However, the proposed regulations in 5418 authorizes what is essentially a mobile retail premises to engage in commercial cannabis activity, receive orders, process transactions in bags, completely exposed on the side of any public road. Thank you.
Speaker 2.
Yes, Seth Smith with Santa Cruz Veterans Alliance, and this time with regard to testing. Our production facilities in the city of Watsonville are licensed for cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution. We are currently contracting on our testing through about 6 different labs at the moment, and that's just because that's the best way to ensure that we have product available at any one time, with the time limits or the time restrictions that the labs are currently under, and the range and what we're seeing from the results from labs. One thing that would be helpful, especially as a small grower or a specialty indoor grower, less than 5,000 square feet of indoor cultivation, would be a change in the batch size requirements for testing. The testing requirements, as you know, I'm sure, incentivize monocropping now. We're not able to give as much variety to our clients or to our patients. At our dispensary, our products that we grow and manufacture ourselves are anywhere from 30 to 50% less than the other products that we carry, that we bring on from other distributors. That's something we're able to do as a vertically integrated group, pass on that savings to the consumer and actually combat the black market a little bit. Changing the testing requirements or the batch sizes, or allowing batches to be tested for cleanliness and microbials as one large batch, but to be tested as individual strains for terpene profile and potency would be very helpful. Reduce costs overall for smaller growers and for consumers.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Good morning. My name is Dirk Brett Howard, Heavenly Sweet co-owner. We're manufacturing and distribution. I would like to address 5724D, the cannabinoid testing. Currently, we have a variance of 10% in the manufacturing end. From information that I've gathered, and also 10 years of laboratory testing, we've been in business, well, actually 8 years of laboratory testing, we've been in business 10 years. We've seen a wide variance between labs and potency testing. And this can be caused by many different factors. One of which is that the laboratories don't have standardized procedures. They're using various mediums to suspend the cannabinoids in, which have different retention rates. I'm going to put on record, I'm going to fax this into you guys later today, a test that was published in O'Shaughnessy. It's a cannabis medical newspaper, quarterly. And it states that they did a ring test with 10 labs, and the 10 labs came back 7 within 20% of each other in variance. Now, a 20% variance to us, the manufacturing end, when we're trying to hit a 10% mark, is huge. That can throw us off the scale. It can disqualify the batch. And that's one of the reasons I believe that the edible industry is being destroyed.
Speaker 1.
Good afternoon, Rich Miller again on behalf of American Alliance for Medical Cannabis, and I'm here to talk about Section 5411 of the card. Why this so concerns me is, first of all, it's a violation of our civil rights, in my opinion. It violates the Fifth Amendment for self-incrimination. Because we do have so many senior patients out there that are living in federal programs, I've had 2 patients come up to me and say that they have been discovered that they are patients, and their facilities go through yearly checks, and they were found to have cannabis in their possession, and they could lose the right to use medical cannabis because they're in a federally program that houses them. So I think we need to remove this card. I think, once again, the compassion is up to the patient. It is a violation of the Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination, and we must take that into consideration. I'd like to echo Sabrina's thoughts and Adriana's thoughts on packaging. I think only decarboxylated cannabis should be in exit packaging and resealable packaging for child protecting purposes, and capsules as well. Anything non-decarboxylated does not have any effect on the physiological effects on the body. I thank you for your time. I thank you for all your hard work and your research over the last 2 years. You guys have done an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Hello, my name is Jay Rich, and I'm a policy analyst at the Reason Foundation, a policy think tank based in Los Angeles. Our research has prompted 3 comments regarding California's state government efficiency. First, Section 5403 limits hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Reason finds this problematic as the regulation trumps local authorities who currently allow cannabis business activity outside the regulation period. 5403 conflates medical use and adult use and ignores the unique issues facing both, including medical needs requiring greater access. However, the most concerning consequence of Section 5403 is the incentive it creates to consume alcohol instead of cannabis, as California alcohol retailers may lawfully operate until 2 a.m. Given that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention deem alcohol as a more dangerous substance, especially behind the wheel, the Reason Foundation suggests striking 5403 entirely or amending 5403 to add, quote, except as specifically authorized by local law or the Bureau in its discretion, end quote. Thank you. I have a couple more comments, but I'll leave more time.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Michael Ramirez, Cannabis Distribution Association, continuing with 5052.1. A critical amendment should be made to allow retailers to reject partial shipments of cannabis goods. While administratively easier to manage in some regards, distributors will incur tremendous costs for restocking and redelivery and potential loss of business if the retailers are not allowed to reject partial shipments at the time of delivery. In subsection 5023 and 5025, we'd like to recommend a more streamlined process for the application and fees for a single licensed distributor who has multiple licensed premises. The current process for obtaining a separate license for each facility causes redundant administrative effort on both the agency and licensee. In subsection 5050D, we believe regulators should have the discretion to allow normal commercial cannabis activity to continue in the event of an extended track and trace system outage. My last 3 points are not related to any specific code. On the BCC website, the previous database allowed for operators to sort by license type and export licensee information. While for safety reasons it is good that this information is no longer publicly available, the downside is that licensees, such as distributors, can no longer...
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Sabrina Fendrick with Berkeley Patients Group again to finish my comments. The proposed regulations in 5418 authorizes what is essentially a mobile retail premises to engage in commercial cannabis activities such as receiving orders, processing transactions, and bagging products in a completely exposed area on the side of any public road and without regard to local rules or regulations surrounding commercial cannabis activity, zoning restrictions, or sensitive use areas. There is a difference between delivering an order that was received and prepared at a secured licensed premises and fulfilling orders outside of a licensed location. In order to protect the safety of the public and the driver, we propose requiring all orders be fully processed and bagged prior to leaving the licensed premises. Further technical changes and additional comments are provided in written form. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And quickly before we move to speaker 2, this hearing is for public comment on proposed regulations. Any other comment, please refrain from using our time here today for making precise comments on the proposed regulations. Thank you so much. Speaker 2.
Continuing comments on 5724D. I would like to see the BCC extend the range from 10% to 20%. Some method of making labs accountable for quality assurance is put in place, such as ring testing. And that's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Thank you. Maxim Columbus on behalf of the California Cannabis Delivery Alliance. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We're here in support of Regulation 5416D, which has been talked about quite a bit this morning. This is a delivery freedom regulation. We're really pleased that the Bureau has adopted this regulation, that it clarifies the ability for licensed delivery services to deliver within any jurisdiction in the state of California. We believe this regulation preserves the individual rights granted by Proposition 64 under Section Health and Safety Code Section 11362.1, which grants an adult the right to go purchase and obtain and consume cannabis for their own personal use. Additionally, we just want to go and clarify that this is a different issue with regards to 26200 with regards to local control than perhaps a land use issue as has been described. Simply put, these businesses will still have licenses in local jurisdictions across the state. However, they will not necessarily be licensed in the jurisdiction where they are delivering to. That still respects the land use authority and local control of the jurisdictions, while also respecting the individual rights of the consumers to go and receive that cannabis. I'll save my comments for another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Hello, my name is Newell Taylor with Newell's Botanicals. I'm currently here to speak on issues that we've found with the testing guideline. Testing guidelines are robust and are attempting to meet the needs of safety, but currently there is no universal reference frame for the testing facilities to actually make their determinations from. So we can send our tests to 3 different facilities, get 3 different tests back from the same batch, because they don't have a universal reference frame for calibration. I would like to see the adopt, commission, research, a universal calibration frame that can be sent out to testing facilities to show when their standard operating procedures are varying from compliance. Until that happens, we're going to continue to see variation across the board, across the state, on general testing from the same batch, and that should never happen.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Hello again, my name is Jay Rich, speaking on behalf of the Reason Foundation, and this is part 2 of our suggestions. The Bureau, thankfully, does not impose occupational licensing requirements, but we are concerned about the negative unintended consequences of the labor-related rules. We suggest the Bureau collect all information regarding the impact of the proposed requirements and allow the alternative methods for licensees as required by Business and Professional Code 26013, Part C. For Part 3 of our suggestions, we are disappointed in the Bureau's decision to ban the use of aircraft, watercraft, drone, and rail transportation found in Section 5311, Part D. Considering that such methods are widely and safely utilized by nearly all other industries in the state, we urge reconsideration of the transportation method ban. Reason would like to conclude by applauding Section 416, Part D, which allows for delivery to any city in California. While the League of California Cities has objected to these proposals, it is consistent with the state law and will incentivize licensing participation. We encourage the Bureau to work with state agencies to ensure cities get their sales tax revenue for sales within their jurisdiction, and thank you for your time and consideration. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Hello, thank you. Sean Trainer with Sensi Valley. As you know, Sensi Valley has been a strong proponent of the movement to regulate market to bring operatives into compliance. I'm here today to seek the ability to meet with the Bureau in order to discuss the ability to add to the state regs what local jurisdictions may find to be better business models than those currently proposed in the state regs. The micro business is an example of this precedent you've already applied. Currently, in the most disproportionately affected areas of California by the failed war on drugs, the ability to remain equitable is near impossible. We've heard that several times today. Without our proposed solution, in doing so, this operation continues to remain a challenge for those that are operating as legacy providers. Sensi Valley proposes the Bureau enact another regulatory license to meet local land use ordinances for a cannabis support facility that provides the commercial services like processing, manufacturing, testing, and distribution for these legacy operatives that we've heard today that are not available to them. We've worked diligently in our local jurisdiction to bring these solutions to the challenges. We now need the state to work with these operatives and jurisdictions to develop a non-conflicting path to licensing. We recommend a cannabis support facility license be made available to allow those who have suffered disproportionately the ability to enter and remain equitable operatives in this compliant market. Incentives to this licensing should also be afforded those who work to bring economic drivers into these disproportionately affected areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 1.
Sorry. Gary Ward from Pack Lab Analytics. I would just like to talk about the PTs that you use to demonstrate that the labs can do the analyses. We found that in Oregon, the labs were passing the normal PTs, which are in hops or oil, but when we actually had them tested on PTs that were on a cannabis plant, they failed. So initially, 90% of the labs failed the cannabis plant PTs, and then after tightening up their techniques, they eventually all started passing them. To get around the fact that you can't package marijuana across state borders, he hired an ISO-accredited PP company to come to Oregon. We gave them the plant. They spiked it in Oregon, and then we distributed the PTs throughout the state. And we found that this, not only was it a better indicator of what laboratories could do, but it also helped labs improve their techniques, so effectively giving much better answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Good morning, and Dale Schaefer. I'd like to draw attention to 5727, the failed certificate of analysis section. As it currently stands in the state, there's approximately 20% false results coming out of laboratories right now. It's not a scientific analysis, but those are some data we're getting back. If you fail a certificate of analysis, you have to reprocess or remediate, or you can't get a new certificate of analysis. I would suggest that you allow operators who do informational R&D testing before that, that have passed tests, to be able to supply that as part of either a retesting plan or something under remediation, reprocessing plan, so that you can get another certificate of analysis if you have the data to back up that you have passed before, and perhaps some teeth in if a lab fails. The first rules that came out had a downside for fails tests that would stop them from allowing to test, or we went in and found out why. We have, as you know, we have a bit of a mess with the testing right now in the supply chain. So I'd like to see the ability to get around no certificate of analysis if you have the data to back up that it's the lab that caused the problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Thank you. And Max O'Connors on behalf of several clients. First, on behalf of, Operation EVAC, the Cannabis Compassion Veterans Organization, we are pleased to be working on Senate 829, supporting compassion and tax breaks for compassion. But we also wish that the regulations in 5411 be expanded to allow for recommendations to be used to recipients of compassion rather than simply requiring the state ID card. Others have previously mentioned the barriers to entry the state ID card poses. And so we ask that, in addition to this being part of the legislation in 829, it be adopted by the Bureau through regulation. Furthermore, on behalf of the California Cannabis Delivery Alliance, there are a couple of additional points we should make specific to the dynamic delivery question. The organization is divided on dynamic delivery in as much as they do believe it should still be allowed, but they believe that the regulations on dynamic delivery should be separate from those on premises-based delivery versus mobile fulfillment delivery. Specifically, there was new rules in 5418 regarding new rules of emergency rates 2.0 regarding the cases within the vehicles and other specific models to dynamic delivery that are now being imposed on all delivery. We'd ask those just be limited to dynamic. Furthermore, a 30-minute turnaround time limits dynamic options to large operators and is infringing on small businesses.
Thank you. Before we move to Speaker 1, just wanted to let people know we have about 30 minutes left of public comment. Again, if you want to write down your comments and mail them to the Bureau, we have sheets on the front table. And also, sorry, if you want to receive notice of changes, please provide contact information on those sheets or via the listserv. Speaker 1.
Hi, my name is Brian Smith. I'm with Hippo Premium Packaging. I'm here to voice my concern about the proposal to end the requirement that cannabis products be sold in child-resistant product packaging and replacing that regulation with one that allows cannabis products to be sold in a child-resistant exit package. The proposed regulation presents a serious danger to California's children and the industry at large. At the recent NCIA annual conference, keynote speaker and former Deputy Attorney General James Cole, who authored the Cole Memo, which guided federal policy on legal cannabis during the Obama era, said that public safety should be the primary factor when crafting cannabis regulations. Since this is the current regulations, most cannabis companies are already complying with the child-resistant product packaging requirement. It took a monumental effort for California cannabis companies to get to this place. To undo this regulation now makes no sense. In fact, should the requirement for child-resistant product packaging be rescinded, the potential liability that will likely occur from a child's accidental ingestion would cripple companies throughout the supply chain, including growers, processors, packagers, and retailers. Exit packaging will almost always be tossed aside once the consumer is home, which leaves the product unprotected and accessible to children. Additionally, exit bags will add millions of pieces of plastic to our landfills, adding to our environmental burden. further polluting our lands and choking our oceans. California was the first state to legalize medical marijuana.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alexandria Irons, and I am the owner of Royal Crest Cannabis. I come to you this morning to ask that the BCC act to manage excessive testing costs for cultivators by adopting a compositing program modeled on Oregon's existing program. Testing costs are an enormous financial burden on cultivators and a major bottleneck in the regulated system, with only 31 licensed laboratories in the state, many of which aren't yet operational. Current regulations keep testing costs high by requiring separate full-spectrum tests for every harvest batch. Under the current system, a cultivator growing 3 strains, each of which produce 15 pounds, must pass 3 independent tests for pesticides, solvents, microbial impurities, foreign material, mycotoxins, and heavy metals, even if all 3 strains were harvested from the same premises at the same time. Compositing rules would allow multiple strains to be tested together for pesticides and other contaminants, so long as they were harvested at the same premises at the same time, and the consolidated batch falls under the total maximum batch size of 50 pounds. Adopting these rules would have major and positive impacts for both businesses and consumers. It would substantially decrease costs for craft cultivators, keeping small family farms in business. It would encourage production of diverse cannabis strains, allowing for more medically targeted strains and greater consumer choice in the regulated market. And, thank you.
Speaker 3.
I want to add to previous speaker said about allowing pre-existing operators to transition into this market. And in addition to the deficiencies we have in Trinity County in regards to surveillance and internet connectivity right now, I also think that if we are going to have some sort of local regs that can take precedent over the state regs for some time, it would be nice to also include microbusiness. The spirit of microbusiness is a beautiful, beautiful fit for California in general, but for the Emerald Triangle legacy producers, it is a wonderful fit, and it is already the brand that has been built. And to allow them a smoother transition into this marketplace should be a top priority. Along the same line of thinking, there's been a lot of talk about these equity programs. I think it's a great idea. And I think economically disadvantaged communities like Trinity, which is the poorest county in the state and has also been disproportionately affected by the drug war, could also be included in these programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 1.
Yes, I wanted to respond to the packaging. We're happy to see some sense and semblance put into the packaging of the product from a retail sale. Cannabis has been in play in California for about 40 years. I'm pretty sure a Ziploc baggie has never been confused to be a child-resistant package. We have no person has ever died from cannabis anywhere. Consuming any type of cannabis, whether it's an edible or a smoked product. What's happening in the northern part of California, and most of California, we're very environmentally conscious, water, the plastics and all that. What we're doing is we're double packaging joints in packages that are ridiculous. We're double packaging cartridges that are coming with massive amounts of plastic, massive amounts of paper, the ink. All of those products end up in the dump, all of them. And for us to be standing here on one side working diligently in order to bring environmentally conscious grows into play, while we watch on the other side of the commercial side of the ridiculous amount of packaging that's taking place. And when somebody does walk out of that dispensary, the first thing they do is remove most of their products from those packaging, because the packaging that they're carrying is very bulky. And so we're watching that instantly take place. There's no recycling programs in place to recoup some of that packaging. It's just beyond ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers on the proposed regulations at this time?
Oh, go. Gary Ward from Analytics again. I would like to comment on On? Oh, there we go. I'd like to comment on the requirement to report pesticides as a detect and non-detect at the LOD. This is the limit of detection. The limit of detection is the point at which you're pretty sure it might or might not be there, but you're not sure. The limit of quantitation is where you can actually demonstrate that quantitation of the result. So reporting, and the LOD, by the way, is developed as one of 4 or 5 different methods, and it's different for every lab, for every instrument, for every analyst, actually. So by reporting down to the LOD, you'll be having reports based on levels differing across the entire state. What we recommend is reporting down to what we call the LOQ, which is the limit of quantitation. At that level, you're sure it's there, you've quantitated it, and it gives you a reasonable result. EPA, in fact, has, when you report to the LOD, you have to flag anything between the LOD and the LOQ with a J flag, which says that this result is estimated, and do not use it for quantitative results. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, we'll go on to a 5-minute break at this moment. Thank you. We'll start back up to see if there's any more public comment. Would anybody like to come up to submit oral public comment? Great. Speaker number 1.
Chelsea Dudgeon with Mills Botanicals again, because I just thought of something while we were saying in the audience. The Type S license tiers are priced kind of funny. So for $15,000, I can get a Type S license with a revenue cap at $1 million. For $15,000, I can also get a Type 6 license with a revenue cap at $1.5 million. So we're paying the same licensing fee and having our cap 30% lower. And I can tell you from experience that with margins and expenses as they are currently, there's no way for us to advance from a shared license to a full license in the runway that we have before we'll exceed that $1 million cap. That really needs to be raised.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Yes, we'd like to talk about the congruency between licenses and the ability for people to have multiple licenses across. And love to have the Bureau review ways to reconcile that data between the agencies as a central database somehow, so that the redundancy of the over and over and over submissions of the same information to multiple agencies, multiple groups after that, based on already land use abilities that require most of that same data. It'd be nice to have something from the local jurisdiction that transpired up into Sacramento to lessen the amount and the burden and the time burden of applying and then receiving a license. Those seem to be pretty dramatic at this point in the game with all of the different requirements that you've listed for each individual license. There's no ability to submit the data one time and then have you all disperse it to the different bureaus and the different overseeing bodies. We'd like to see some activity on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
This is Sean Herm from the Wait for Orders Project. We would like to say thank you very much to the BCC. We think you got it right for removing local control on delivery. This means veterans will be able to access cannabis over opiates and other pharmaceuticals that are leading to the overdose and suicide epidemic. So we appreciate removing us from the front lines in the war between prohibitionists at the local level and the profiteers at the local level with the League of Cities and those who are truly suffering from the wars we truly fought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, speaker 1.
Hi, my name
name is Michelle Vizitzer, and I'm the CEO and founder of Cannabis. I want to speak on behalf of opening the borders between different cities. I think it's very important for all consumers and patients to be able to access all different brands and manufacturers, because every consumer has a different type of need and consumption, and if you don't, they won't be able to access all of them. Not every dispensary carries every type of product that's out there, and it's very important if we want to keep this industry alive and functioning on an innovation level. We need to make sure that everyone has access to all different types of products that are out there. And also, something that we do is we help people get to know different products. So for us to be able to do that, we need to be able to have that product in the car and get it to them. I also want to speak on behalf of the businesses and make sure that they have control over landlords. There's right now a difficulty of ownership, so transferability of licenses. So if a company is leasing space, that they have some kind of power to be able to transfer a license if they have to move to a different facility in a different space within the city, or if they have to go to a different city, at least they know what kind of movement they have to do and have some kind of priority. Thank you.
Thank you. We just have 5 more minutes of public comment, so if you'd like to come up, please do. Just a reminder to receive notices of any proposed changes, to submit your contact information up at the front table or sign up for the listserv online. We will be here for 5 minutes if people want to come up. Speaker 1.
Hi, my name is Frank Lee. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce. And I have some comments. On behalf of the Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce, the leading voice of over 600,000 Asian Pacific Islander-owned businesses in California, largest statewide ethnic chamber, I write in strong support of the regulations in Section 5416D, which states that the delivery of legal cannabis products will now be able to be made to any jurisdiction in the state. These changes to the regulations represent the culmination of the will of our state voters. Minority and ethnic communities across the state looked at the passage of Prop 64 with a hopeful eye, optimistic for a legal cannabis industry and the many new employment opportunities that could jumpstart the economies to many underserved jurisdictions. The local bans, coupled with the lack of licenses issued, have prevented hard-working small business owners from operating legally and have encouraged the gray market operators to continue disadvantaging licensed operators. However, by allowing delivery businesses to make legal and licensed deliveries into all jurisdictions throughout the state, we are finally creating a legal cannabis marketplace that is open. At the Cal Asian Chamber, we advocate and strive to achieve the creation of sustainable communities through providing access, education, and opportunity for California's API and small business community.
Thank you.
Thank you. We just finished the statement. Yeah. For our API and small business owners and cannabis business owners, these regulations represent a significant step forward and acknowledgement that the state is continually working towards the promise of expanding opportunities for them in this new economic sector. For these reasons, I strongly support the inclusion of delivery access to the new changes in the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. So a couple more minutes. Is there anybody else that would like to come up for public comment?
Once again, John Brower from Trinity County, and speaking in regards to local control over deliveries, it seems that Mount Cursa is a wonderful compromise, and it is clear that it allows for local governments to continue commercial activities, which would be to license them and regulate them through local land use. And the compromise that got reached in Mount Curtis seems to be very reasonable, that it allows for locals to control where a delivery can originate from, but not where it can land or where it might pass through. And it's imperative to promote this transition to a well-regulated market and stop the silly checkerboard up and down the state of these weird regulations up and down the state. It only extends the duration of this painful transition. And if we're talking about the priority of transitioning pre-existing operators into this well-regulated marketplace, it's absolutely imperative for patients, adults, and businesses to be able to operate statewide. Thank you.
Thank you. And this concludes the public hearing for proposed regulations. Again, if you would like to submit any other written or documentary comments, please do so at the front of the foyer. Thank you so much for coming.